You started
Four,
talking right in the middle of it.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the CTS podcast, episode 43, where we talk about politics and our personal opinion on the news, including just a fun amount of just nonsense. Welcome to all of our new viewers. Thank you for joining us.
All 0 of our new viewers that we pick up each week. I think I was looking at YouTube analytics, and 100% of our viewers are subscribers. So,
really?
Yeah, I think we got one like kind of crazy comment on a video the other week. They didn't subscribe.
Oh, I remember when I posted a TikTok. We need to start doing TikTok videos again.
Yeah,
but
we should.
I posted a TikTok, and it was when we were interviewing the gubernatorial candidate,
Chris Peterson. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's pretty good.
And the only comment on the TikTok video was a comment from an older man that just said "pandering fool." It's like, okay,
fair.
Okay. Kind of a
pretty funny.
Can we say based?
No.
We can't say that?
But
pretty based take.
Yeah, go share our videos if you want.
You can't say based. That's not true.
I don't know. I'm just gonna steer.
They can say it on Twitch, and Twitch is even like worse than YouTube now.
Steer very far clear of it. Okay. This week, the president of Haiti was assassinated.
Have you seen the video of like the militants going into his house?
So I've seen 2 videos. One's from like way down the street, and like you see him like pull up and drive off later. And there was another one from like inside the house, it seemed like almost. Like looking out the window that showed them like getting out of their car. How bizarre is that that's a thing that happened?
Well, it's kind of weird. It's like, you know what it made me think of? That military coup in Myanmar. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was pretty.
Did we ever talk about that?
I don't think so, because we might have been like taking a break when it was when it started.
Yeah. So if you don't know about that, you guys should go look into military coup in Myanmar. That stuff's weird.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? In some countries, just military takeover of government.
Yeah, and it's like, as bad as anything's been in the U.S., I don't think we've been close to that.
I'm trying to think, like, even in our early history, I don't think there's ever been something like that.
I don't
know if there's ever been a power grab that really got anywhere.
Right? I mean, like, you could argue the Civil War.
Other than that, maybe, yeah.
But other than that, yeah, it's been. But yeah.
How crazy is that he got assassinated, though?
I mean, that's like, right? Like, Abraham Lincoln getting assassinated. Like, when you say assassination, I'm like, oh, that's something that happened like 150 years ago, not something that literally just happened last week in Haiti. Like, that's pretty close to here, pretty close to the U.S. Seems weird.
I may have already talked about this on the podcast, but it's kind of surprising how little assassination attempts we've seen on like major world leaders. Like, I'm trying to think of the last really big assassination attempt. It would have had to have been when they tried to kill Nixon. I mean, at least for leaders in the West. I'm trying to think of another.
Yeah, I don't know.
Have you seen that video of the attempted assassination?
Which one? Because there's the 2. There's the one that like the balloon pops, like, and it sounds like a gunshot that I see all over TikTok.
There's this video on YouTube that it shows Nixon getting shot, and
that's crazy.
The Secret Service like scuffles for like 3 seconds, and then there's like 4 guys just piled on top of the president, and all of a sudden the camera like turns away and it turns back, and like the Secret Service has like Uzis and stuff. Like,
really?
Uzis, like street weapons. It's crazy. You look around and it's just a bunch of street weapons.
That's bizarre.
Isn't that weird?
That's because
Like an actual extended mag Uzi, like something you would find in a video game.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
That's the last time in the U.S. that anything, right? Like, I'm not thinking incorrectly.
I think that's the last
major one.
I mean, there's people that have been arrested for, suspected plots.
Like mailing.
He's out of jail now. The guy who shot Nixon, he's free.
That's crazy.
He was in jail for a long time, but
yeah.
I wonder if there's a different penal code for trying to kill the president. There's got to be, right?
Right, because
it'd be of a government official or something, like attempted murder of a government official or something weird.
Well, because it's like the difference between, like, if you're selling state secrets, it's treason. And if you're, like, selling company secrets, it's corporate espionage and, like, very different punishments. So
treason, you can get the death penalty, can't you?
Yeah. I mean, that's, like, the Snowden thing, right?
Do you think he should get pardoned? I don't know if we've ever talked about whether or not he should get pardoned. And if we did, it was probably a long time ago. But I don't remember your take.
I think he should, especially since the government has come out and said the things that he revealed were illegal. Like, courts have ruled that the things that he revealed was illegal.
So why don't you think he gets pardoned?
Because, like, the government doesn't usually walk back mistakes, especially when they're, like, intelligence, like, the intelligence community. Like, you probably don't want to, like, they're not going to walk that back and be like, you know what, we did make a mistake. Like, you're good now.
Do you think that government officials in large have the right to disclose illegal actions by the government to the media without fear of persecution?
I think they have the responsibility.
That's a based take.
Is it?
No, I agree, but it's pretty base.
I feel like yeah, I mean, it's why we have whistleblower laws, right? Like, the why for a private company would be any different for the government, right? Like, their argument was that he endangered soldiers or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, aren't you endangering soldiers by, like, doing the illegal stuff? Like, I don't understand where that's coming from. And it's crazy that he's still on the run.
He's in Russia with what's it called? Amnesty.
Supposedly
gave him amnesty.
Supposedly in Russia.
In other news, you remember Michael Avenatti? You remember that guy?
Was he a Trump lawyer?
He was Stormy Daniels' lawyer. They got a bunch of media attention for a while.
Yeah.
He was just sentenced to he was all over CNN, by the way. He was like one of their main contributors on Trump, and he just got sentenced to 2.5 years in prison.
For what?
He extorted Nike for like $25 million.
Oh,
he made a threat.
Yeah.
He threatened Nike, and they went directly to the FBI.
That's good for them.
Like, rolled.
How? What? Because what was it? I remember hearing this story. What was it? Do you remember what it specifically was about?
So he was representing a high school team. I think it was based out of California that was suing Nike for the abrupt, like, closure of their contract or something. And Avenatti threatened, essentially blackmailed Nike, and they went straight to the FBI.
Because it's weird because lawyers are in this weird area where there's like with settlements, there's kind of like legal blackmail, right? They can go, hey, we'll drop the case if you give us this much money. So he must have done something like.
It was something worse, yeah. It was something. Crazy. It was something really bad.
That's funny. Your dude shoots out the text to whatever Nike executive that he's talking to, and is like, "Hey, like, pay me. What was it? $25 million? You said?" And he's probably like, "Well, that. For Nike to make this go away, they'll just cough it up. They're a massive company." And then they go straight to the FBI, and boom, you're in prison.
Rolled.
That is yeah, he kind of fumbled the bag a little bit. And if you're the school that he's representing, you got to be like, dude, what the heck? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dude, when you were growing up, did you watch, when you were younger, did you used to go on YouTube and just watch a bunch of like right-wing think tank videos like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Jordan Peterson, obviously a little bit less Jordan Peterson, but all of those guys? When I was younger, I would watch those videos on repeat. And it's so weird because now that I have an actual understanding of politics, they're so annoying. I can't stand any of those guys except for Jordan Peterson, who's the only one I like, and that's because he's like an actual intellectual and someone that doesn't only stay in the political realm. He likes to like bring things to light in a bigger picture kind of thing. But I saw this really good take, and it was like Ben Shapiro's sort of a fake intellectual, right? Because although he's pretty fact-based, he's so disingenuous with all of his arguments that it's really hard to take him seriously. And it's sort of the same thing with Steven Crowder. And the reason I bring this up is because I don't know if you saw this, but Steven Crowder was supposed to debate Ethan Klein on his YouTube show. And
Yeah.
Ethan Klein brought in Sam Cedar, like plugged him in, and he was on
Looped him into
the
the
call. And Steven Crowder like lost his mind because Sam Cedar is someone that actually knows quite a bit about politics. Obviously, he's sort of a, what's the word, celebrity-ish personality.
Yeah.
Both of them are.
I don't know where I fall on that one. Like, obviously, like, I don't agree with Steven Crowder, but I don't know. I'd be kind of bugged if I set up like a debate with somebody, and I'm sure it wasn't like Steven Crowder that reached out to Ethan Klein
Yeah.
to set up this debate. I'm
It was
positive.
the opposite.
Like, yeah, I'm positive like H3's legal or like team, like probably pestered him, like, oh, do this debate with us. Do this. Come on, debate us. Like, we're just dumb YouTube people. And so like I'm a tiny bit sympathetic to like, well, you like setting that up, but also I do on the flip side, it's like if you really believe in these ideas and think like this is right and like I know my stuff, then you should probably be fine whoever shows up. But to get like for somebody to initiate contact and like dictate terms to you, whatever, and you're like, okay, fine, we'll do it, and then to like set you up like that, like I'd be bugged if that happened to me.
On the other
And then I'd intellectually destroy whoever got on the call.
On the other note, that's sort of what Steven Crowder does, though, right? I mean, he clips all of his videos like, liberal gets destroyed. Liberal who believes in abortion gets destroyed. Liberal who believes in high taxes gets destroyed. And it's like this 19-year-old college freshman that probably doesn't know how to tie her shoes. And he's debating her and just annihilates her with a bunch of straw man arguments. It's kind of like and then Steven Crowder, as soon as he sees someone that's, intellectually on his level politically, he like freaks out. He's like, oh, I knew this was gonna happen, and he has this liberal meltdown. He looked like an SJW getting destroyed.
Yeah,
and it's just cringe.
I don't know if I'd quite make that comparison. Like he doesn't, because if he went up to like these college students and said, hey, like let's debate or whatever, and then brought in somebody like way smarter than him, like I don't know, it just, when people, I don't have much sympathy for either party is I think what I'm saying.
I have much more sympathy for the conservative cringe lords getting destroyed. Or sorry, I don't have much sympathy. Yeah, the opposite. Just because they're cringe, and I think it's funny. Yeah. That whole thing has kind of died down. There's like a big, like a lot of their views are not as good as they used to be either. There was this big movement right before like COVID, and when I was maybe a couple years before COVID, that those guys were really popping off. and now I don't think they're popping off quite as much.
I do think YouTube.
Ben Shapiro's rich,
Well,
so
I do think social media companies have probably made a concerted effort to, because there was probably, like, the algorithms probably pushed some of that stuff more than it should have, and I'm sure there's been a concerted effort the last few years to kind of correct that.
yeah, probably. I sort of think the same thing about Joe Rogan, but it's kind of, I mean, his views are still really good, but I've listened to him less as of late, not because I can't listen to him anymore, because
I think it's because of the Spotify thing.
There's the Spotify thing for sure, but even when I used to listen to him, let's see, it would have been 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. It was a little bit more. It was a little less politics, first of all, which I think is interesting because I don't think he really knows what he's talking about when it comes to politics. And it was more like it was just more interesting to me. You can tell he's watching what he says, and you can tell, like, for example, I don't know if you saw his last episode with Alex Jones, but he had Alex Jones on the podcast, who definitely doesn't have a filter and probably needs to be corrected about a lot of things he says. But you just compare that episode on Spotify to, like, his first interview with Alex Jones. I mean, this last episode, he's correcting every single thing he says. I mean, you half the podcast is just listening to Joe Rogan, like, fact check stuff, and which I think is a good thing. But I also think it's like people are watching for entertainment. They're not watching the Joe Rogan podcast for news.
Yeah, and I'm not even, like, my thing about the Spotify isn't even so much the perceived censorship, but, like, visibility wise, like, if it doesn't show up in my YouTube recommended, I'm probably not gonna watch it, which I think ties back a little bit into the point where a lot of people probably just have their feed on YouTube, and if something doesn't show up in the recommended, they're not gonna go search it out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I still can't get over the Haitian president thing, but we already covered that. That's just a bizarre scenario.
Yeah, it's
we didn't talk about, do they have any theories on, like, what's happened, or, like,
haven't
they caught a lot of people?
I think they've killed 4 or 5 people so far, and they've arrested like 7 others.
Really?
Killed. There was a massive shootout with the police.
Really?
What was reported. There's this big shootout, and 4 people got killed.
I saw an article about, like, one of the guys that was involved that was weird. It was like it like the header was like man involved in assassination of Haitian president, and then it was like colon or whatever, set like filed restraining order against Florida neighbor.
One of them was a U.S. resident.
Yeah, I think it was this guy.
Yeah.
But it was just a weird, like, I didn't get it. I didn't see the connection between this dude literally was involved in the assassination of a world leader, but we should be putting out that he filed a restraining order with
probably
his
CNN,
neighbor. I can't remember who it was.
Being honest.
But yeah, stuff like that was weird. I haven't seen a ton of media coverage about it, but some of the stuff I have seen was kind of like that, and why are we even following with something that seems so secondary to the debate, or not debate,
well,
but
have you seen how cringe, like, the clickbait titles have gotten for CNN and Fox News? They've gotten worse. I can't
watch them anymore
on YouTube. It's just straight clickbait. It's like going to a famous YouTuber's thing and being like, "OMG, Haitian president assassinated at 3 a.m. ? Gone wrong." It's like, what is this, CNN? You're clickbaiting me?
Not clickbait with the big, like, red circle and arrows pointing to stuff. Yeah, that stuff's weird. It's like it seems like corporations a lot of time are like 3 or 4 years behind, like, the flow of things. And so it's like they that stuff, when that stuff was working on YouTube and people weren't kind of getting like pulled into it, and now they're like, hey, like we need to have a presence on YouTube. And yeah, it's kind of funny.
Did you hear that England was, there's a rumor that they were going to issue a bank holiday for the Euro final. A bank holiday, which is like, I think that's their way of saying a federal holiday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It does.
We would never do that if we made it to the World Cup final.
The fact that, I think from a political standpoint, the fact that it was even considered, like, I don't think it's going to happen, but the fact that it's even being considered, like, says, I think, something about differences in the political system, like, between us and them. Like, they're in parliamentary, you could pull off something like that.
Well, they can do whatever they want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the parliamentary powers are crazy.
Yeah. Whereas here, you like, I mean, they just knew England made it to the final a week ago, less than a week ago, and they're thinking,
so quick.
Are we gonna do a holiday? It would not make it to the House floor.
No, they'd probably be on recess.
Like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. Here's sort of an interesting thing. So he was a really famous guy. In England, the Parliament has a Speaker of the House. So I can't remember his exact name. They call him Mr. Speaker, but his name was John Bercow, and he was the Speaker for a long time. And he was a member of the Conservative Party. I think it was under, who was the last Conservative Prime Minister? It was something David. I can't remember his name. He was really famous though.
Yeah, I'm blanking too.
Anyways, he, after resigning as Speaker, he's now going to the Labour Party, which is kind of weird.
It's politics, man. I just think, like, all of those people are, like, I mean, you saw it with Trump here, right? Like, he was a Democrat all his life until he was like, hey, I could probably win as a Republican. Let me flip. And, like, he was friends with all those people that hate him now. So I just think it's, like, wealthy people just kind of do whatever they want to. I don't know how sincere to their beliefs any of them are. And yeah.
Here's an interesting thing. The U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that Arizona's new voting laws are unconstitutional because they're unduly harsh on minorities. One of the things that they put in place, so like in these Native American reservations that live in the middle of nowhere, really, I mean nowhere close to town at least, they issued a law that you couldn't give your ballot to someone else to take to the ballot box for you. And that was one of the biggest reasons that they said it was unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Which I agree with. Like, you should be able to do that. I don't really see a problem with that. With handing someone your ballot. If you live.
It is weird. Like, how would you even know? Like, how would you police that? Like, I don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It seems like something that was not well thought out. And
well, what's crazy is these voting laws they all have some really, really concerning sections. And it's kind of weird to me that the Supreme Court hasn't stepped in and said, okay, we're not doing this. Or, obviously they tried to do it at the federal level. They tried to pass a voting reform bill, and the Republicans shut it down, which I also think is weird, right? It's just kind of weird to take a stand against voting. Like, I realize it's all just politics, and if the roles were flipped, the Democrats would do the exact same thing. It's just like how they complain about each other for gerrymandering. But it is weird. It's like a really weird political position, how they've positioned themselves to say, we believe in free and fair elections, and we also believe that in restricting people's access to the polls if it means getting free and fair elections, quote unquote.
yeah, it's all just, I think it boils down to, like, it's all just politics. That, I mean, even if you go back to 2016, like, how long did, like, Trump got impeached because Democrats were like, oh, like, we think Russia interfered with the election, like, you worked with Russia or whatever. Like CNN was calling Trump a Russian agent, and then we hit 2020, and I can't believe like you'd ever question the results of the election, and then it's reversed for Republicans, where they're like, in 2016, it's how could you question the results of the election, and now it's like stop the steal or whatever.
I think that's like a pretty big thing, though. Questioning the results of the election is about as bad as it gets as far as the democracy goes. Because if you convince the public that there's little faith in the election, I mean,
oh, for sure. And in the last 5 years, we've seen both parties.
It's a new development.
Do it.
It's a new
and
thing.
Both parties flip.
This isn't normal. Like, that's not a normal thing. If you remember when Bill Gore had the election stolen from Al Gore, when he had the election stolen from him, which it was stolen, he came out and he said the Supreme Court has made their decision. I concede the election to Bill Clinton or George Bush, and that was the end of it. But nowadays, Trump still refuses to concede. He never conceded. He never called Biden and conceded.
Yeah. It is kind of weird that it's. I think Trump's just such like an outsider that he feels no obligation to follow any political norms, nothing like that, and that's probably why people voted for him in the first place, and then it didn't turn out so good.
Yeah, and I do think it's good to have non-political people running for president, or at least questioning political norms. But I feel like that's a pretty big claim to say the election was stolen, right? I don't even know if the Democrats went as far as to say the election was stolen. I mean, Hillary Clinton conceded.
Yeah,
and Donald
they
Trump
did
didn't
impeach
concede.
Trump, though.
I mean, not for the election, though. They impeached him because of the Ukraine stuff.
But didn't they? I mean, wasn't that like why they were investigating that and found it? Was because of the like the Russian connection, like the Russian interference. They were investigating, and then he obstructed that.
I'd have to look at the Mueller report again, because he lays it out. He lays out why the investigation is taking place, or what the purpose of the investigation is. But I think that's part of it. I think part of it was, and to be fair, there was Russian interference, right? I mean, I just don't think it was at the scale of what people were claiming, right? Because there's definitely interference, but the problem is the Democrats had built it up so much, and when the Mueller investigation came out and his report came out and it was just a big nothing burger, people were like, well, I guess we have to impeach Trump for something.
Yeah.
And they chose Ukraine, which is just weird, right? Because if they had saved all the impeachment stuff for after what happened on January 6th, I actually think they would have had more luck. But who knows?
Who knows if January 6th even happens, though, without.
Yeah, that's a good
yeah,
point.
But no, for sure, I definitely think that it's like both parties. We've never been like. We both have expressed that we think both parties do awful things, and that there's not really a good party.
Yeah, it's not even that there's a good party. There's just not really good people either. I mean, there's a few politicians that I think are probably good people, good representatives of their state. But I think most of them, I'm like, these people are pretty bad overall.
People that haven't lived, they've been in Washington for how long? 30, 40 years? What, I don't know how you're representing your state when you've lived in Washington most of your life.
Well, and they don't even have to campaign, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
don't even have to campaign.
Yeah.
That's what's weird.
Yep. Definitely not something we like to see.
All right, should we wrap this
Yep,
one up?
let's wrap this
CTS
one up.
PC episode 43. Thank you for coming.